this class, what it's going to do is it's going to teach you how to produce digital products that behave more like people. And at the beginning of this course, this may sound kind of strange, right? But by the end of the course, it'll make perfect sense. Okay, so why is this important? Some very smart people from Stanford did some science in the 90s and found out that humans, we have some instincts in our brain that tell us how to behave around other sentient beings. And as soon as an object exhibits certain levels of interactivity, in the way that your phone exhibits interactivity when you press something and it does something back, those instincts are activated. So that's a fancy way of saying that people already assign human traits to their software products. Even though they're clearly not human. Your phone is not mad at you. Your laptop did not crash on purpose while you were working on that file. But we still assign those human traits to it. So if humans are doing it anyway, might as well design for what people are doing anyway. And if we don't do it, because we assign these human traits, if software behaves in a way that we wouldn't behave in a natural setting, it feels kind of weird, right? Like in this example here, Google Assistant can't stop sending the weather forecast. Even if you type stop, it's like, got it, here's your daily weather forecast. Or in this example of the Department of Psychology in Southern Illinois University, is asking if you have any more comments or feedback. But if you look at this little form down here, that little rectangle is the form for people to put in feedback. So it's kind of sub-communicating that you don't really want to hear from them. A lot of times, digital products will require humans to do the heavy lifting for them, right? So here, someone put in date of birth in the format that's recognized all across the US as the standard format, and the computer's like, sorry, only numbers can be used here. So why can't the software recognize how you put it in and then do that heavy lifting for you? That's what computers are good at. Here's another example from Google Assistant. This time, again, it's expecting people to think the way the computer thinks. So here, it's asking, remind me to download Edge of tomorrow at 10 p.m. And the assistant is like, OK, I will send you the reminder, download Edge of tomorrow at 10 p.m. So the computer doesn't have enough understanding there to understand how, in order for the software to do what the person wanted it to do, the person would have to act in a way that the software understands. And that's not the right approach. Technology should work for us and not the other way around. One of my favorite examples of this is the old Facebook event invites. They've since changed it. But for a long time, like up until maybe 2 years ago, it used to, when you got an event invite, the options were join, maybe, decline. And if you hit decline, the person who set up the event would actually get a notification saying, Jamal just declined your invite. And that's like just so weird, right? Like that would never happen in real life, that you invite someone to a party and they come back to you and say, I'm sorry, I'm declining your invite right now. So that's the thought process there. And there's a lot of cases in which bad interaction design just causes minor frustrations and maybe some smirks. But there's also cases where things can go seriously wrong. This is medical software. A young woman had been undergoing chemotherapy, and she needed to get rehydrated after the chemo. And the nurses on duty knew that she needed to be rehydrated, but because they were unable to navigate the user interface of their software, the patient ended up dying. And so the nurses understood the treatment, but the software was too complicated to use. So there are cases where good design is a matter of life and death. Now, I've got some bad news for you. I can't teach you everything there is to know about interaction design today in this course. This book over here is sort of the magnum opus on interaction design, and it's 700 pages, and it's just, as you can see on the cover, it is just the essentials. And it's a fantastic book, by the way. And even if you read the entire book, a lot of the stuff just you get better at through practice, and through looking at a lot of interfaces and doing it on your own. Furthermore, interaction design is only part of one broader field called user experience. So, and it has overlap with other things, right? So the behavior of an app, of course, has a connection to the information structure or to the text or to the animations, but we can't cover that here today. It's just too much. Of course, it has a connection to the graphics, right? But for this course, we're only focusing on the essentials of the behavior, and then we're going to show you where to look next after we give you this foundation here. If you're interested in some of the other things, other parts that we can't cover here around the visual, around architecture, I would recommend checking out the art and design, the web and UX design section at Creative Live. They have a lot of great courses. This fast and effective UX design course down here is really great. Icon design course is fantastic. Recommend checking some of those out. But the objective for this course is to understand, first and foremost, how the best designers think about interaction design, right? So, because I think it's really important, because there's a lot of rules in interaction design, a lot of things that you can follow, but I'm really bad at remembering things. So what works for me is to look at the mindset of the best designers, how they approach problems, what are some of the key principles that they follow. And then when I'm presented with a particular problem, I can look at those principles and solve the problem based on those principles that I've had. So we're going to talk a lot about the key principles of interaction design today. And then towards the end, we're going to create a plan for how to improve as an interaction designer. So again, this is a great approach for people who aren't good at rote memorization, because then you have, as you go through this, as you get better at interaction design, once you start looking at all of these interfaces and having all this material to draw from, you can compare it to principles and make solutions based on that. So in order to accomplish the objective, first we're going to talk about what interaction design is. We're going to talk about the 5 main principles of interaction design. Then in the second segment, we're going to show some examples of what makes an interaction good. And then in the third segment, we're going to do a step-by-step process. What are the steps that we need to do in order to get to a great end result. And then in the bonus material, we're going to talk about a plan of how to get better at interaction design, because, as I said, we can only cover the basics here. This course is for new designers looking to improve primarily, but I think it's also a really useful course to have for non-designers, project managers, product managers, engineers, people who work with designers and want to get more of a glimpse into how the design process works. And also, I think that experienced designers can get something from this too, just simply because you're getting a different way of expressing those things that you already know. I still read a ton of design books, even though I know most of the stuff that's in there, because every author brings a new perspective. And you'll read a topic that you've already been familiar with for a long time, but you're like, oh, wow, they really phrased that in an amazing way. I'm going to take that. I took some of it for this course. So, you always stand on the shoulders of the people that came before you. Finally, interaction design is really, really important. We live here in the Valley, so you have this, and you're surrounded by good design. But in the real world, a lot of people still don't understand design the way that we understand design here. So for the first 3 years of my career, I think I was one of those designers that got overly hung up on how it looked. I wanted it to look cool. I wanted to get my idea pushed through. I didn't really care much about users at all. It was all about me. But when I started letting go of that, when I started detaching from my ego, focusing on solving problems with these principles that we're learning here today, that's when my career really started taking off, right? That's when I started going from like those little contracts to the big contracts.